Greetings, beloved Princeton United Methodist Church community. It's Pastor Jenny here, and I'm reading from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." This is the word of life. Thanks be to God. So we are continuing to look at the story of David in this kind of semi-continuous way. So we're picking out kind of the key stories in the cycle, the story cycle of David, and we're finally to David. So Samuel, the prophet of Israel, has been charged with anointing kings. And last week we heard about how the people insisted that they must have a king, and God said, "Okay, I will give you a king." And so Samuel anointed Saul as the first king of Israel. We didn't read the Saul story, but that's what happened between last week's story and this week's story. And this week, Saul is already finding a new king. The first king has been a miserable experience, and Saul has really shifted to a place where it is untenable for him to be king any longer. So God is ready to anoint a new king and sends Samuel to the house of Jesse and Jesse's sons, and tells him that the new king is among the sons of Jesse. So Jesse brings all of his son, or brings his first son, his oldest son, his most athletic, ready son, and this is the one that is being talked about in this moment. That yes, he might look like a king from outward appearances, but God looks upon the heart. So there's this whole series of Jesse bringing all of his sons, and none of them are the one that God had God's eye on. And finally, Samuel has to say to Jesse, "Are you sure this is all of your sons?" And he said, "Well, I've got one like out in the field. He's out there, playing his lyre and tending the sheep and enjoying the beauty of the earth." And he says, "Well, I need to see that one too." And that is the one that ended up being David. So David was anointed that day, but it was there's some harrowing stuff that still has to happen for David actually to become king. And it's still quite a story to be held, but this is where we are in the story. And I invite us to just dwell on this statement that is made through Samuel, that God looks not upon our outward appearances, but looks upon the heart. And I wonder, again, we kind of know something about the story of David, probably, you might or might not know, but David is always held up as the ultimate king. Even as we look to Jesus, Jesus is from the line of David. David is kind of the ultimate, the golden age of Israel history. And David himself, though, had lots of flaws, and we're going to see what some of those are in the coming weeks. But I wonder what you imagine God saw in David's heart. Maybe you want to even look through this story a little bit. So we're in 1 Samuel. This particular verse that I read is from chapter 16, but you can read kind of some following chapters to see. But you can also look to the Psalms, and it is not the case. Sometimes people, there's sort of a tradition that says that David wrote the Psalms. Now, I believe that David wrote some of the Psalms. David did not write all of the Psalms, but some of them are attributed to David. But even so, one of the most popular ones is the 23rd Psalm. Many of us know that. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." It is one of the ones that kind of traditionally is attributed to David, which is another way for us to kind of look into David's heart by the poetry, the music, the lyrics the prayers that David might have put words to from his own heart. So I wonder if you have thoughts about that. But I also wonder how this word speaks to you. What does God see in your heart as God looks at you? Maybe there are people around you that you are struggling with. Maybe you're struggling to see something beyond the surface. Maybe you see something beyond the surface that you don't like. Maybe there are people that you're really finding yourself at odds with these days. And I wonder if this might be a prayer for you to ask God to help you see what God sees within their heart. That does not mean that all of us have these beautiful, pretty, shiny, pure hearts then that's all there is. Because certainly God sees everything that's in our hearts. But God doesn't just see the bad, right? God doesn't just see the stuff that we wish God wouldn't see, or the stuff that we wish we wouldn't see ourselves, or even the stuff that we can't even hardly see for ourselves yet, but probably need to see. But God sees something in us. And, I do believe that when God saw that boy, that young man in the field, who wasn't yet king, but was becoming king, that he didn't just see the good. He saw good. He also saw a heart that could easily stray, that could go about a path that was not the one that God had hoped that he would go on. And yet God chose him anyway. Maybe there was such good in there that all of it can kind of be held together. But I just wonder how you might let God tell you what is in your heart that God sees, and how God might shed light on how you might see others as we put on the eyes of Christ, the eyes of God, to let God help us to see with God's heart and God's eyes those that are around us, those who we adore and those who we struggle with, those we are perplexed by, those we may even consider our enemies. How might we take on the eyes and the heart of God to see what God sees? I invite you to continue to ponder this and remember that, before I do my ending thing, I will be with us in church on Sunday. We're going to continue to explore this, of course, and then I'll be away with Bobby and Elliot for the next couple of weeks. Pastor Taylor will be here in this little video spot the next 2 weeks, and then she'll be leading worship the first Sunday I'm away, and Pastor Allie, will be leading the second Sunday that I'm away, and then I'll be back again with you after that. So friends, remember that it is a joy and a privilege and an honor for me to be on this journey with you. Remember that you are enough, we are enough, because God is enough. We were created for joy, and God sees the belovedness, our beloved childness that we each are. May we hold on to that and know that and trust that that is a core piece of who we are in God's eyes. I'll see you soon.